Joining me now is radio talk show host on New York's WOR, Mark Simone, and Nick Adams, author of Retaking America, Crushing Political Correctness, some of which was done by the president today, or at least attempted. Mark, let's first talk about the reaction that the president is getting from members of this manufacturing council that he put together. Richard Trumka is a union leader. He's a tough union leader. He's got a very checkered past, by the way. And he said the following: I cannot sit on a council for a president that tolerates bigotry and domestic terrorism. I've never heard him tolerate either, but he says, I resign effective immediately. I'm just wondering what you think his workers feel about this, because he was there today to talk about an infrastructure program which presumably will be employing a lot of the members of unions that are a part of Trumka's union.
It's absolutely idiotic. Everybody has gone hysterical the last few days. I don't know what's going on. I understand this long primal scream after they lost the election, but it's as if they've decided they've got 2 weeks to take out Donald Trump. They're going nuts over everything. He's denounced.
Well, Charlottesville deserved a serious discussion. I mean, there was a person killed. There were people beat up. We had to figure out what was going on, but we seem to be figuring that out, and then we are stuck with race baiting.
Absolutely, but he's denounced David Duke, the KKK, 1,000 times over the last few years, and a couple of times this week. I would like to hear Terry McAuliffe denounce the violent alt-left rioters that were there, too. There's no room for violence on either side.
All right, Nick, we also had the CEOs coming out. 4 of them have now resigned from the Manufacturing Council, about which Donald Trump wrote the following at 11:21 this morning. He said, for every CEO that drops out of the Manufacturing Council, I have many to take their place. Grandstand should not have gone on. Jobs, it's all about jobs. Now, I'm wondering, what about the stockholders? Are stockholders of these companies that these CEOs serve for, are they served by CEOs who leave a negotiating table at the White House?
Stockholders, don't worry about stockholders, David. They're not important. The only thing that's important is the conscience, of course. That's, of course, the position that these CEOs have very unfortunately taken, and I think it's rather disgraceful, quite frankly. They do have a responsibility to their stockholders. They do have a responsibility to the employees of their company. They do have multiple responsibilities, and for them to kind of want to decide to subscribe to political correctness and grandstand, as the president very correctly pointed out, is nothing short of disgraceful.
And Mark, the fact is that the executive office of our government, the president's office, is the one that does most of the regulation through most of the agencies, whether it's the EPA, the Labor Department, or whatever. These CEOs provided their stockholder with an inside view of that regulatory process. They could make their case. They could lobby, if you will, the president of the United States, who will be deciding on regulations. They have now pulled themselves out of that extraordinary seat that they had in the White House.
Yeah, they've given up their input. It's damaging to the company. I'd like to know what other decisions they're making based on personal whims, based on partisan politics. If I was a shareholder, I'd want to look into that. What other bad decisions do they make?
Nick, do you think that perhaps there may be a little feedback for these guys after what they've done?
Well, there certainly should be, David. I don't think that that's the right way for a CEO to behave. I think to take to Twitter to kind of tell the world that they don't agree with what the president's doing and the president's an awful person and they're not going to stand by as bigotry happens. I've never heard so much nonsense in my life. These guys are there to represent their company. They're there to represent their employees. They're there to represent their stockholders, and for them to kind of let their own personal feelings get in the way, I think is very disappointing.
Yeah, it certainly seems like grandstanding. Nick Adams, Mark Simone, thank you very much, gentlemen.